started. So this presentation will be recorded. Mr. Lopez, if you just want to do the slide that is up front right now, just so we can get our families that need Spanish translation in the correct room.
Buenas tardes, gracias por estar aquí esta tarde. Si ocupan traducción en español, tienen funciones en la parte baja de su pantalla. Solamente tienen que presionar en la interpretación y cambiarlo al idioma español. Adriana Contreras está en otro canal y va a estar haciendo la traducción al español a través de toda la presentación. Así que tomen un segundo para cambiar si es que ocupan lenguaje en español. Gracias.
Great, thank you. So we'll go ahead and get started with introductions. I apologize, my picture I think disappeared tonight, but I am Danielle Merla. I'm one of the school counselors at Branham. I have students with the last names L-I to R-H. We have Vince Liebern as well, who's one of our school counselors, and he has students with the last names R-I to Z. Unfortunately, he was unable to make it tonight, but I'll let the other panelists introduce themselves as well. Mr. Lopez, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have a lot of really great information for you. If you haven't met me yet, I'm Mr. Lopez. I'm one of the other school counselors, and I work with students with the last names F-I through L-E. And that's my alpha, Ms. Bloom.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Bloom. I am the other school counselor, and I work with the beginning of the alphabet. So that is A through F-E.
Great. And then we also have Ms. Shamet, who is here, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, pardon me. My name is Sandrine Chomet, and I am your college and career specialist here at Branham. And I am available to meet with your students both in person and via email. If you want to contact me, please go ahead and, well, if your students want to contact me, all they need to do is send me an email, and access to my calendar is in that email message. Thank you.
Great. So just a couple of logistics before we get started. This presentation is being recorded, and I will have it posted on our school's website by Friday. I will also post the recording. So you'll have both the presentation, and then you can also refer back to the recording as well. One other logistics for tonight, it is a Zoom webinar. And so unfortunately we can't see you, but you can see us. And so if you have any questions, we're going to be using the Q&A box that's down below on the bottom tool within the Zoom webinar. And so you can access that there and ask your questions. The one advice I would say is to wait to ask your questions until we've gone through the portion of the night or the applications that your students might be applying to. And so then that way we can make sure that we've answered them. But if something didn't get answered throughout that presentation, go ahead and use that Q&A, and one of our team will answer that question for you. All right. Turn it over to Ms. Bloom.
Yeah, we're going to get started. So the main thing that we want to, start with going over is that it's really important that your students research the colleges that they're applying to. So every college is different. Some require SATs, some don't. Some are asking for specific letters of recommendation, some aren't. So it's really important that your students are researching the schools that they're applying to. In addition, this senior class is the last class that they will be accepting Ps on the transcript. So we see on the students' transcripts that they have Ps or NPs, which was the spring of 2020. The colleges know that they're coming. They are accepting them for this graduating class. But then after that, all the students should have letter grades. Next slide. So graduation requirements. So in order to graduate from Campbell Union High School District in Branham, students need 220 credits to graduate. which is 3 years of history, which includes Gov and Econ. English is 4 years. They need 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 2 years of a world language, and the world language needs to be the same. So if they were taking Spanish, they would need 2 years of Spanish. They need 1 year of visual and performing arts. They need 1 year of a college preparatory elective, which could be an advanced, a 4th year of math, or specific electives that we have. They need 1 year of career technical education unless they do 2 years of a visual and performing arts. They need 2 years of physical education and then 2 years of general electives. So again, they need 220 credits total to graduate. So when we're looking at their senior year, we want them to have a variety of goals. So these are just some of the goals that we want them to create. So their senior year, we really want them to be taking rigorous classes and pass their classes with a C or better. If they're pursuing college, we want them to attend colleges, visit colleges, attend college fairs, and really create a list of between 8 to 12 colleges that they want to apply to. This list could be less, it could be more, but we want to have on average 8 to 12 that they are going to be applying to. And within this application process, there's forms that they need to fill out. For example, complete the counselor survey, the teacher survey, the parent questionnaire. So there's forms within it that they need to fill out. In addition, working on their recommendation letters, so asking their teachers, making sure they fill out the form that was gone over in their senior meetings with their counselors. And then also once they are kind of working on this application, we want them to look into how they're going to afford college. So having that conversation with your student now is great because our FAFSA application and other applications that we have are starting to open up in October. So it's great to start having those conversations about how, you know, students are going to be paying for college. And this graphic goes over what colleges are looking for based on what they're applying to. So every college that they're applying to needs an application of some sort. So for community college, there are no transcripts needed, no subjects tests, no essays, no letters of recommendation, no interview. For CSUs, so that's looking at San Jose State, Chico State, San Diego State. Again, they need the application. They sometimes need transcripts. And then again, no subject tests, no essays, no letter of recommendation, no interview. For UCs, they do need the application. They don't need transcripts. Subjects are optional. They do have personal insight questions where they answer 4 out of 8. They don't need letters of recommendation unless requested by the school, which isn't super common, but it does happen. And then they don't need an interview. And then private schools, those are more cumbersome application. So then they're looking at transcripts, they are looking at subject tests, they are looking at essays, they are looking at letters of recommendation. The key part for this is that the letters of recommendation depend on which college they're applying to, who's asking them. And then sometimes there is an interview. And then the other part is looking at transcripts. So CSUs and UCs do not require a transcript when applying. So if you've already requested them in Naviance, you don't have to, so you can go ahead and delete those. And then the common application and schools that require a school report, those transcripts will automatically get sent when you request the school report, and that will be done by our counseling team. And then do not request transcripts separately on Naviance. And again, if you have, you can go ahead and delete those requests. And then sending test scores. So it's important to know that some colleges are still accepting SATs and ACT scores. So college, private out of state, SAT and ACT, please send to each school. So some of them are test optional. Your student has the option to send in their score for the application. If they're happy with their score, they can send it in. If they're not happy, they don't have to send it in when it's test optional. Some schools are still test required. So in that case, those test scores would need to be sent.
So moving into the sort of second phase of what post-secondary options students have, please note that there's a lot of information in this presentation. It's being recorded, so access it at any time that you need to. I think I'll start by prefacing as well that, college application is an extensive process that starts now and goes through the end of the school year. And so that requires students to be in constant communication with counselors, with Ms. Chomet, with teachers with letters of recommendation. So let's work on that together, because it is a pretty extensive process when it comes to applying for colleges and in the spring college admission decisions. To start off with community college, it is a great option for students. We have this Promise grant now in California that pays for the first year of the student's tuition at a community college. Most of the students at Branham that decide to go to community college decide to go to West Valley or De Anza. And so that process really will start in the springtime in February or March. And then those school counselors from, or college counselors from those schools will come and guide students through the application process and the steps to get enrolled. But that will happen in February or March. They have great options for students. So if students are unsure of a particular major and they want to start with general education courses and kind of start looking at possibly some lower division courses for a potential major, they can start that at the community college and then also be able to transfer to a four-year institution. Most of the community college should also have this program called TAG, Transfer Admissions Guarantee, with some UC schools, meaning that they follow a set of particular requirements and they have a guaranteed spot at the institutions that the school has partnerships with. And so now that's important to note, because it is not every single UC, but the schools that they have a partnership with. And you can look that up on the community college websites if they have a TAG program and the schools that they have those programs with. Next slide, please. Vocational training programs are popular for students. If a student wants to go into auto mechanic or barbershop or cosmetology, those are definitely options, and the trainings can vary in the length of time and also the costs and financial aid available. So that's something that we will need to check in with students so that we can make sure that they're on track with the application process for whatever school they decide to go to for vocational training, and to make sure that we have everything done on time. CSU applications. There are 23 campuses in the CSU system. That application is opening up pretty soon, in just about over 2 weeks now, on October 1st, and we'll go through November 30th. It is $70 per application. The application itself is pretty straightforward. I think most students can probably get it done sometime in like 3 to 4 hours. It's pretty straightforward. Information about the student, self-reporting grades from the past 3 years, and then also the senior class schedule, the campuses that they're applying to, majors, and then some schools will ask for supplemental questions from the students to answer. And again, it's a pretty straightforward application for students. There's no essays, no letters of recommendation. Students can start applying on October 1st. Please, please, please do not wait until November 30th. It feels like every year the system crashes and students are not able to submit on time. So internal deadline, as I like to say, let's do that before Thanksgiving break so that we don't run into any issues. So before Thanksgiving break, ideally students should submit. Let's not wait until November 30th. The UC. This application out of the 9 schools is actually open now. Students can go in and work on the application. However, they cannot submit the application until at least November 1st. And so the application is open, but they cannot submit until November 1st. And they also have the same application window. November 30th is the deadline. Let's not wait until November 30th to submit the application. Let's submit it hopefully before Thanksgiving break. And like I said, students can go in there and start the application now. It is the same price for the application fee, $70 per campus. And it is a little bit more extensive of an application process. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Something to note is the UC Eligibility Index. This is a statewide context where if the students in the top 9% of the California high school graduates, and they're not automatically, or if they're not admitted to any of the campuses that they apply to, they can be sort of sorted to a different campus that has space available. And then that would be a second review of the student's application. So again, top 9% of high school graduates, if they're not admitted to the schools that they apply to, they may be offered another spot in a different campus if space is available. So more information on this link here provided. The UC is a little bit more, they call themselves a comprehensive review, meaning that they look at many, many, many different aspects of the students. 13, I think 14 academic and personal factors, approval of faculty, the UC Senate, that they look at things beyond just the GPA, beyond just like the number of AP courses the students taking. They're really looking at the quality of senior year program, meaning what classes is the student currently taking, and how does that compare to the last 3 years of the student's transcript? Special talents, achievements, and awards. This particular section can be kind of exhaustive in terms of what the student can put. They can put a, you know, anything that the student has participated in, extracurricular activities, any awards. I like to highlight that it needs to also be relevant, and it shows commitment, so things that the students have done over time that have been consistent, and not, you know, just kind of a one-off extracurricular thing that they did. So ideally it needs to be relevant and shows commitment to the student's application. Promise of leadership, recent marked improvement in academic performance. Let's say the student was more of a C, B average student, and they've, you know, kind of made a change and have gone to B's and A's. They can talk about that, and they can talk about why certain things may have gotten in the way of their academic performance in the last couple of years. My guess is probably a lot of students will talk about COVID and distance learning. So give the college rep context as to what you bring to the table and what you bring to that university. Significant community service. And again, I'll go back to things that show commitment over time and not just, you know, volunteering for 1 hour a year, or, you know, it needs to show commitment over time. Participation in student government at school, and then intensive study and exploration of other cultures. And the full list of factors is here. I think I just want to reemphasize that they're looking at things beyond a strong GPA. How is the student involved in the campus community at their high school, and what is it that they bring to the UC? Personal insight questions. It feels like every year, those students can start working on it now. I've been doing this for 7 years now. Every single year, this is the part that I think takes students the longest, is actually having time to write their personal insight questions. They're short essays. It's a maximum of 350 words responses. They have 8 prompts to choose from, and they answer 4. And it doesn't, so my probably, you know, recommendations, look at all of them, see what feels that you can talk most about, but also that seem relevant to you, and start working on those. If you have not already done so now, let's definitely start that soon, so that we have enough time to review, edit, have other people look at them, give you feedback, and let's be sure that you're answering the prompt. The person reading your application is not going to know the student, so we have got to show them context as to who you are as a student beyond the transcript, beyond what you are on paper. We need to show them context as to who you are as a student. Hand it off to Ms. Morella.
Thank you. So just some of the common mistakes or things that the UCs have told us at some of their conferences that we've attended. things for your students to essentially just watch out for when they are applying. That these are some of the reasons why students may have not gotten accepted. I would say the biggest one is when they are doing their personal insight questions, please make sure that your students do not put a specific UC campus on there, as they are sent to all of them that they are applying to. So if that gets sent to Davis, but you're talking about Berkeley, probably not going to go very well to that UC campus. So really just keeping it generic to all of the UCs in general when you're answering those personal insight questions. Being careful the way you use humor. Something may be funny to your student, but it may not be funny to the admission rep who's reading these applications. Being careful with creative writing. Really, this is the point of the application for the students to really get their voice, for the admission rep to really see and feel the type of student that is applying. And so you really just want to be careful how those personal insight questions are written. Again, they want to know their thoughts, not somebody else's words, focusing on themselves, not necessarily focusing on somebody else, as they're admitting your student, not their grandmother. We've seen things like that in the past. Sticking to facts, it's only 350 words, so it is short. They really do need to kind of get out what they want to say. I would caution students to use one of their personal insight questions with something that's already been stated in their application. You really want to pick personal insight questions that add to the application, that it's giving new information and not just repeating something that was on a previous part of the application. And then one of the big things that they tell us at these conferences is please have the students write out what the acronyms are. So we know what things are on our campus, like PLTW, but they may not, or NHS. So just, especially at least the first time it's being used, to really write out the full description, and then they can use that acronym afterwards. The additional comment section. So the UCs have it in their application, the Common App for the private schools, which I'll get to in a moment. They also have it. This is a great area for students to really, give clarification. If there was something maybe on their transcript that they want to explain. Again, I think a lot of students right now are using the additional comment section for COVID and what kind of happened potentially with grades during that period of time. I always suggest to students that if they were in a situation where they had to choose between 2 AP courses, or they weren't able to take certain courses, this is an area to explain that they would have loved to have taken AP Computer Science, but it was at the same time as AP Environmental Science, that this would be that section to kind of use it. It's not required, so students can use it if need be, but if they don't have something that they want to explain, they don't need to. The one caution that they do give is do not use it as another personal insight question. So this is really just to either give that clarification or expansion on something that you feel like needs to be explained. And then really just overall presenting themselves on the application. They really want to get a sense of who your student is as a whole. That's why they do the comprehensive review versus just like our CSU system really just looks at data. They look at the classes they've taken, the GPA. Within the UC application, they're really looking at almost every piece of what your student has done academically, extracurriculars, service, everything that Mr. Lopez went over. So really make sure that they have taken the time to go through each part of that application and have filled out all the fields. Don't leave anything blank, especially if there's something that can be phrased. Sometimes I've explained to students too that sometimes they can't do extracurriculars because they go home and they babysit their younger siblings. That is something that they want to put on the application. Or they go home and they take care of their grandparents. Just because they're not in a club or a sport, things on campus, those pieces that they do outside of school at home, that also counts. And so really making sure that they're putting that in their application, as it's going to add value to it. So now we're going to jump to the private schools and out-of-state campuses. They are a different set of colleges. So they do not have one specific application where you can fill out one application and send it to that set of schools. you really do have to do it individually. So for the private schools and out of states, it's very important that your students read the instructions all the way through. And especially right now, since with COVID, really taking a look on the college's website, what is being asked? So are they being asked to send a transcript? Do they need letters of recommendation? If they do, what kind of letters? Are they specific? Are they general? And then again, with the testing, is it optional? Is it blind still, or are they now requiring it? We have seen a couple schools move back to where the SAT and the ACT is going to be required. So really what I've suggested to students when I've met with them in our one-on-one meetings that we've had since probably the middle of August is really your students, if they're applying to any private and out-of-state campuses, have them use an Excel document or a Google sheet where they're listing out the different schools, what their deadlines are and what they're asking for. Because with these schools, deadlines are not suggestions, they are a hard deadline. So if they miss that, they're not going to get into that campus. And so we really want to make sure that they have everything that they need in order to hopefully get accepted. So some of the private schools and out of states will use the Common App. So if they use the Common Application, I would definitely suggest using that. It will make your students' life a little bit easier as they can kind of put in at least some of the pieces with their extracurriculars and their academics all kind of in one application. Some schools have moved to the Coalition application. And so for that, students just need to look at the websites to see what they're using. Some of our out-of-state campuses, they have their own institutional app. And so at that point, then you would just submit the application through the campus directly. So again, really taking a look at that specific website and seeing how they want things submitted. If they are using the Common Application, which is most common, they will be required to write a personal college essay. So again, similar to the personal insight questions, it's really taking a look at the subset of questions that they have and choosing that one that they really feel like they can write to, the one that they feel like their voice is going to come alive in that essay. And so that they do get a choice in. Some of the private schools or out of states may have supplemental essays. So they will have the one personal essay that they have to write, but they could have 2 or 3 additional essay questions. And that's just going to vary by campus. But when they start that Common Application, it'll let them know if they do have supplemental essays attached to their application. Many of our private and out-of-state campuses will ask for teacher letters of recommendation. What I have suggested to your students is that they really need to take a look at what kind of letters they're asking for. So sometimes it is just a generic, they want 2 teachers and your students can choose whoever they would like. Sometimes they're very specific where it has to be 1 humanities teacher and 1 math and science teacher, or it has to be 2 teachers not from their senior year. So it really just is dependent on the different campuses. So just taking a look to see. The other piece that I explained to your students that's important is to look if they need a counselor letter of recommendation. There still are some campuses out there that will definitely ask for a letter from us as your student's counselor. Some schools have moved away from it, or they have stated, they want 1 teacher or a counselor letter. My recommendation to your students is if they give the choice between a teacher and a counselor recommendation is to most likely probably choose a teacher, unless they feel like they have a really good rapport with their counselor and they have seen their counselor all the time. Otherwise, teachers see your students more frequently than we do. We will also take care of sending what's called a school report. That is where we send your students transcript. So they don't necessarily need to request that transcript because we will be sending it through that school report. We send 2, where we send 1 in the fall, and then we will send 1 in January that will include basically their fall semester of senior year on it. And then if they need test scores, or if they're required or if they're test optional, your students then need to send that in. If they're required, they do have to send them. If they're optional, it is optional. So if your students scored well and it correlates with their academic record, they may want to submit the test scores. If they didn't score so well, then they do have the option to not submit. But it would be your students' responsibility to submit the test scores. We do not do that on our end. And then again, just repeating that every school has their own deadline and they are all very different. So one of the questions that we will ask students when we meet with them individually is how are they applying? So are they applying with regular decision, which typically then that means that the students have a longer period of time to get those applications in. They could have an early deadline of like mid-December, but most, if they're on regular decision, are typically in January. Rolling admission means that students can apply at any point and then they start accepting at any point throughout that cycle. The one that we are usually wanting to make sure that your students have communicated with us on is if they're doing early action or early decision. Early action is the non-binding. So if they do early action, they're usually applying anywhere between probably November 1st to about December 15th is typically the window for early action. Most students will go this route because they want to know from the campus early if they can get accepted. So typically students are applying maybe to a couple of early action, especially those that would maybe be their dream school. They have their heart set on going to that school. And so they want to show that desired interest. So they're going to apply early. So you can apply early action to a few schools. I don't feel like you need to do it to every school. Students will sometimes do that, but really traditionally early action would be to those couple of schools that your students really want to go to. On the other side, though, is early decision, and that one is the binding contract. So if your student decides to do early decision, and we do have a few students doing that this year, they do have to communicate with their counselor because we do have to sign paperwork stating that we've had a conversation with your student, that they understand if they get accepted, they have to go. So no matter where they get accepted from other campuses, they would have to attend that school as it is a binding contract. So we have met with the majority of the seniors. So you go home tonight and ask your senior if they've been met with. If they haven't, we have probably about 50 more seniors to meet with. And then we should be through everybody. So hopefully by the end of next week, all of the seniors would have been met with. So if they are applying early action or early decision to any campuses, and typically that's going to be more your private and your out-of-state campuses or our private campuses here in California, then they are going to turn in what we call our letter of recommendation form by Friday, September 30th. If they are doing regular decision, then they have a little bit longer of a period to get that form together, and they would turn that in on Friday, October 30th. At the end of this presentation, I will stop sharing my screen so I can show you in Canvas and on the website where these different documents will be for you. So once your student has applied and they've turned in all their paperwork and everything goes through, then it's the waiting game, and then they wait to see where they've gotten accepted. Once those decisions come through, it is a reminder that those are provisional acceptances. So essentially what that means is that your student still needs to maintain the same grades, the same GPA that they have had over the years in their high school transcript. If they get a D or if they get an F, the campuses have the right to revoke that acceptance. And that is what we always want to stay away from. So it's really important that students continue to work hard all the way through the end of the year so that they can keep that acceptance and not have it be revoked for either not completing a course and just knocking their eligibility out. So once they have applied, there's a couple different steps that we want to make sure students have done, as the colleges do not reach out to counselors or the school if documents are missing. They will only reach out to your student. So at that point, your student has become responsible for the rest of this process. So when they have finished applying, they will get an email confirmation that the school has received their application. The next step is they're going to set up a portal for each one of those campuses. So they will set it up that through with an email. And then that way they can see on that portal what's been taken, what's been accepted, and what they still need to submit. So it's really important that they're checking their email on a regular basis. When they are applying for these colleges, we recommend that they do not use their school email, that they should be using a personal email. If their personal email is not professional, we recommend that they change them. and make sure that they are a professional email that's being sent through with their applications. But essentially within that email and within those portals, they'll be able to see if their scores, their transcripts, their applications gone through, their letters of recommendation. And so if any of those things are missing, then that's when they can come back to us as their counselors and we can make sure that things get submitted. We do submit most things through technology, and we do know sometimes technology can be not so great. And so if anything didn't get submitted, then don't have your students panic. They just need to come and see us. And then usually we will send it directly to the campus instead of through the source that they wanted us to send it through originally. And then again, it's just following up on those portals. And so what I always suggest is that they should be checking it at least once a week. So kind of setting every Sunday, I'm going to check all my college portals and just make sure that everything is there. And then that way they can see what they still need to submit. And then hopefully they get some admission decisions. And then by May 1st, they can make the decision on where they're going to attend. And then I will turn it over to Ms. Shumette.
Hi, everybody. What I wanted to talk to you about, financial aid for private and out-of-state schools. So one of the things that I want you to be aware of is not to be intimidated or put off by the private schools and their price tags. So in many instances, when a student gets admitted to a private college or private university, the offer letter will also include a financial award. And that can be fairly significant to where when comparing a state school versus an out-of-state school, I'm sorry, a state school versus a private school, that you can get a better and more accurate picture of the cost by cost comparison between the two types of programs. Secondly, we also have an organization called the Western Undergraduate Exchange, and it's a program where a consortium of colleges in the western part of the United States have agreed to accept out-of-state students at a reduced rate. Now, there is no fixed rate that there's no set rate. So depending on the university, they will vary in terms about how much the award they will provide. And from what I understand, the award is on average about $10,000. The important thing to check is one, which schools are participating and which majors at those schools are part of the Western Undergraduate Exchange. So it's really a good idea to look, one, at the school, and two, at the majors and whether or not that they qualify for the WUI exchange. So in terms of the requirements, it varies by the individual campuses. So what you would need to do is look at the link above, check for the participating institution, and then within the participating institution, check on the majors, because that will let you know if the major that your son or daughter chooses to pursue is part of the WUI exchange. Next thing I want to touch base on is it's very, very, very important to complete the financial aid application. And there are two parts, which is two different documents, sites. One is FAFSA, or the California DREAM Act, and the next one is the CSS profile, and that's typically used with private schools. So it may be that your son or daughter wants to apply to in-state public schools as well as private schools. So that means they would have to do both FAFSA and CSS. Next slide, please. So the scholarship world is extremely vast. So we have a new resource. It's called Admit, and that will help you research the different scholarships that are out there. You can also apply for scholarships through the goingmerry.com. And we also have a scholarship list here in the College and Career Services list, where we can give you the name of the scholarship as well as the amount of money each scholarship provides. Also, there are consortiums among universities, and one of them is called QuestBridge, and it is targeted for students who might be of a lower income, but would like to attend one of the 45 members on that list. And in that case, you could apply through QuestBridge. So first and foremost, apply for state and federal aid, do the FAFSA, and also apply for using the CSS profile. So there are a variety of ways to pay for college. You can do grants, you can do scholarships, you can do work study, and you can do federal loans. The one thing I do want to give you a heads up on are the private loans, that many private lenders out there will say that you can borrow money from them to attend your 2-year or 4-year college program. However, their payment terms and interest rates tend to be higher than the FAFSA rates, and also the payment terms will be a lot different. For example, in the case of one of my children, he applied for one of those private loans, and the interest started accumulating right away. And also there was no opportunity for forbearance. So you really want to make sure that you go in with both eyes open when you look at those private loans, because they can be rather burdensome on the student in terms of the payback time window and the amount of money that they will have to pay each month. So next slide. So a few more important dates that would be a good idea to focus on is reducing college costs. And that event will be held October 6th at 6:30. You need to pre-register for the event, and the link will be sent out Monday, the 19th through Canvas. So, and Parent Square as well. We also have a financial aid night, which will be October 18th at 6:30. And please remember, the applications are due November 30th. This is a non-negotiable, and it would be unfortunate if your student was not able to attend the CSU or UC or private school of their choice because they missed the deadline. So the deadlines are set in stone. So thank you, and I'll pass it to our next speaker.
Mr. Lopez, do you just want to share a little bit about the other parent night for the costs?
Yeah, we have a retired financial planner who's hosting a webinar, as was mentioned with Ms. Chomet, reducing college costs. He's been helping families for many years, walking them through college savings and ways to reduce college costs, especially for families of students who maybe want to look at private and out-of-state schools. I have heard great things about the webinar from other colleagues in other high schools, and so he's hosting that for us on October 6th at 6:30. But we do need people to pre-register to make sure that there's enough participants, and also to let Steve know how many people will be at the event. And so we will be sending out that information along with the registration link next Monday for you to sign up.
Thank you. So just some background information. Like I said at the beginning, we have been meeting with all of the seniors since about the middle of August. So those meetings have been about 20 minutes long. Some seniors have come back to see us, have made some additional appointments. But within those meetings, we are reviewing their graduation status. And then essentially we're asking them, what are their plans for after? And so then that way we could really tailor that conversation to either the college applications that they're looking at, talking about their college list, if they're talking about going to a certain trade school or the military or taking a gap year. We were able to kind of have all of those conversations with them based off of what their interests are once they leave us at Branham. So it's been really great having those meetings because we really get to gauge kind of where students are wanting to go once they graduate, but also, like I said, really tailoring the information so that they're getting what they need to move forward. So all of the documents that we've gone over with your students, I would say more for the community colleges, four-year colleges, those documents are going to be in the BHS class of 2023 Canvas classroom. So in just a minute, because I believe this is our last slide, I'll show you where you can access that in Canvas. And then as well, I put our links below here for our academic website and our wellness website. So you can access those links from there. I will be posting this presentation and the recording on the academic website. So again, I'll also try to show you where you can access that as well, so everybody has that information. So let me stop sharing here. See if I can do this. Okay, so I believe now you can see the Canvas. If my colleagues can just nod that that is what's being shown, great. And so in here, what we've done is we've created a grade level Canvas classroom for every grade. So if you have other students in other grades, they each have one as well with different information in there. But for our seniors, a lot of the events that we do, we will always put under the announcements. So that's where we've put the announcement of the event tonight. I know some of the things for homecoming and the rivalry week, all of that's been placed in those announcements. But where you're going to find those documents is going to be under the modules area. And so if you scroll down, the presentation from tonight will be listed here along with the recording. We will also be posting the Spanish presentation as well. But right below that is where you're going to see the college and post-secondary documents. So we've gone through these different documents with your students, depending on what they've told us where they're wanting to apply. So the first one is generally just a checklist. It's going to walk them through the different types of colleges that they can apply to, when are some of the deadlines, what are things that they should be looking out for, as well as giving them the financial aid information. All of the links are in that checklist as well. So if your students don't know where to go or where to start, have them go back to this checklist. The next one is one of our counselors used to be a UC admissions reader. So she put together a document where essentially she breaks it down by every section of the application, where they're kind of giving what the reader is looking for, but then what are some tips? What are things that our students can add to their application to just give it some more value? So as your students are completing the UC application, I would highly suggest that that document is out and they use it as a guide. If it's helpful, to please use it. The other one right below is really just our information for Branham. So Branham's address, the counselor's information, how big our class size is, things that some of these applications ask for. We want to make sure that your students have access to them. The big one here is the LOR, the letter of rec form. That is the form that we walk through with your students if they need letters of recommendation. So if your students can't find it, or they say that they, forgot, here it is right in this Canvas classroom. And so they can access that there. And then it's got step-by-step instructions. And again, your students can come and see us at any point if they need help with this process. We know that it can be overwhelming at times. One of the suggestions I gave to students was to make this as if it is a class assignment. So every day you have a college class that you are essentially working on, which is your applications. So every day your students should be working on a piece of these applications for at least 30 to 45 minutes. That way it's making it more manageable over time, and that they're not just waiting until it gets closer to that deadline to then start working on some of these pieces, as the deadlines come really quick. The other three are just kind of either brainstorming activities to get some of the essays going. So if they need help kind of with those personal insight questions or the personal essays and just getting started, they can use any of those three documents. And then let me try to share the other document. Okay, so this is what our website looks like on the academic side. So for the presentations, for the recording of tonight, if you just go down to where you'll find the grade level presentations and you click on that, then you'll see 12th grade. And you can click on that, and then that is where we're going to post everything. You'll actually see the applications and the presentations from last year. I don't usually take them off until we've done the new one from this year. And so then that way families always have access to what we've done. So that's where you can find all of the information that we've gone over with your students, but also what we've gone over tonight. And that is what we have for you this evening. If there's any final questions, go ahead and put them through the Q&A. I'm more than happy to answer those for you. If we've answered all your questions, that's great. And then you can go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciated your time tonight.